Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to my Game of Thrones Legends mobile game content. So today, folks, we got a big bomb dropped on us, a new dev diary. Let's go ahead and go to it and get right into it. So first off, we had a release of a new dev diary today. The Greens, the Night's Watch, and more, released on March 12th today. And it's got a lot of information in it, and we're going to talk about the majority of it. But before I begin, I want to do one thing. I want to look down here at the bottom, and I want to see that this has been put out by a person named Battle Kitty, the Game of Thrones Legends Design Director. To you, Battle Kitty, I want to say thank you. I do not know you personally. I have not seen you post on any of the Discords or anything like that. But I have noticed that you're the one that's been putting out these dev diaries. And that is exactly one of the things that we asked you for. Whenever we put out that letter, the 4 leaders of the most prominent houses in the game, the top 4 houses in the game, me as the leader of the Three-Eyed Ravens, and then we had Night's Watch, Red Wedding Planners, and Valerian Steel. We asked you for more communication because that was one of the things that the community always said. We wish we had more communication. We wish we had more communication. They do things and they don't tell us and they don't explain it and they don't give us any direction. Well, you have been trying to do that with your dev diaries, and I, for one, appreciate that. Battle Kitty, thank you very much. So we're very appreciative of your efforts, and we want to say that. So now let's get into the bomb that's been dropped on a lot of players today. And that's kind of, I may be understating that just a little bit because this update has the potential to really wreck a lot of people's day, I think. Because as you know, the same thing always happens when you talk about nerfing in a game's development cycle, especially with games like this where you buy things to upgrade your characters and to make your roster stronger and higher level and more powerful. When things get changed, it always leaves a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, especially when they've spent a lot of money. That's something that's just not really something you can get around. I mean, you make changes, yes, and I've always been a proponent of make changes by making counters. If you make something that's too strong, make a counter to it. Don't nerf it, because then people that have spent money feel really, really badly about it. And a lot of times they leave the game because they get frustrated because they've spent the money and now you've changed it. You took away their ability to do things that they like to do, and they just can't get beyond that. So that's one of the things that's always bad about nerfs. But anyway, let's talk about the changes. So the dev diary is called The Greens, the Night Watch, and more. So basically what they're going to focus on is the Night's Watch and the Greens faction, which anybody with any common sense that's been watching this game's development over the last couple months has to know that the Greens are just ridiculous. The power of the green teams is just ridiculous. And I get it. You've spent a lot of money on them and you love them. And I've actually come around to my own self because I was one of those people that always hated it that the Greens were so powerful because they were destroying everything that I had and I didn't have any, and I felt really bad about it because the time that they came out, I couldn't jump on the bandwagon like everybody else because I was just broke, and that's all there was to it. I didn't have the money to be able to buy into all that stuff, and I kind of missed the boat on it, and I didn't even really dive in to the Greens as a playable faction until, I don't know, probably a month ago when I really started building my green team. And now I've got myself to the place to where my green team pretty much does everything for me. Does my raids, is my legendary assault dragon team, and also is my main events team. And that is where the problem lies. The developers know that they were way too powerful, and I'm not going to throw any stones here by saying that possibly they did that intentionally to encourage people to spend. I don't know. I don't know what goes on behind the scenes like that, so I'm not really going to throw stones about that because I know they got to make money too, but it seemed that way. And it was undeniable the power that the green team had. So I've always been that person that said, hey, they're going to get a nerf at some point, and you know it's going to happen, and I've always known it was going to happen, so I expected this. After reading through the notes, I don't really think it's going to be as bad as people think, and I'll explain why here in just a little bit, but it is going to change your gameplay with your green team, that's for sure. Now, how the Night's Watch and the other factions are going to play into this, who knows? I don't know. That's just going to be something we're going to have to try out and see, because we're not really very familiar with the Night's Watch and their gameplay style, because nobody really uses them, and there's going to be new ones added that we've never touched before. So that's going to be something we're going to have to discover. So let's get into this. She says, the winds of change continue to stir, and as any wise maester will tell you, change is the lifeblood of a thriving realm. In our latest update, we're taking a careful hand to balance the scales, introduce fresh faces to the battlefield, and continue our journey to ensure that every champion, be they common or legendary, has a worthy place in the ever-unfolding struggle for power. Okay? So that kind of sets the stage for what they're thinking about doing. Many of you have grown fond of the greens, and for good reason. Their might has shaken the very foundations of the meta, and their power is undeniable. Well, at least they're admitting it. But even the strongest must find balance, and so we're adjusting our most dominant legendary greens, reining in their overwhelming force so that battles remain fair and full of meaningful choices. At the same time, we're expanding their ranks, welcoming new common and epic champions into their birthright so that more players can find strength under their banners. So they're basically admitting that they know they were too powerful. And now they're saying they're going to do something about it. Well, you waited a little bit too long, because too many people have spent too much money on them now to really accept too many changes. So just be prepared, is all I'm going to say. Beyond the realm of the greens, far to the north, the Night's Watch stand ready. So they're basically talking about how they're going to do some stuff with the Night's Watch as well. So they've got some system changes. They're going to do cleaner mechanics, better clarity. Of course, no update would be complete without refining the core components of combat itself. We're making important adjustments to how buff triggered abilities and shield break abilities events function, ensuring more consistency across battles. So abilities that activate when a champion receives a buff will no longer react to shield or stamina changes. Example, Robb Stark's leader ability, Brave in the Face of Fear, which buffs his team when an enemy gains a buff, will no longer trigger when that enemy gains a shield or stamina from abilities like My Son and Scars from Daenerys. Okay, so that's understandable, because I don't really think that was intended, that those kind of things go on when a shield is gained or a stamina is gained. So I don't really think that that was a good idea to let that continue, because that sounds like that could have been broken real easy. Shield break events. We fixed an issue where champions who react to shield break events were triggering too frequently. So people like Alistair or Tormund would trigger their passives for each individual shield break instead of when a champion's total shield hits 0. So I'm kind of sad to see that, actually, because Alistair is somebody I had always thought would have made a really great mechanic to build a team around. I just didn't have the ability or the characters to do it, so I never could really make it happen. But it was something that was on my list to try one of these days if we ever had the ability to build a team that was good enough to focus around him, a shield type team. So I'm kind of sad to see that one go without ever actually getting to try it. We've also addressed an issue with critical hit logic, ensuring that when critical blows strike, their reactions behave as expected. Okay, very good. So now we get into the bread and butter of the update. This is what everybody's wanting to know right here. The greens. Strength at the start, but the battle is long. Okay, this is one of the things that make the green team so strong is their initial strike force. They hit hard and they hit fast. And in combination with Alicent and Otto, they can drop defense and charge up their own team to hit hard and fast and make it seem like a just unstoppable force. In a raids team, when you have a good green composition, you can fire off Alicent, then Otto, then Aegon, then Aemond, then Sunfire, and boom, you've wiped out half the opposing team in turn 2 and 3. So that was very serious, and people just can't recover from that when you get them in that position. With the coming update, we're keeping their explosive opening turns, like what I was just talking about, intact, but ensuring their power curve behaves as designed. And I think that means they want the greens to be strong at the start and then wane off a lot quicker than they had been, no longer self-sustaining so much to where you can constantly keep that high birthright train going. I think they're going to change it a lot. Early aggression. Well, wait a minute, I skipped one. Birthright will still feel impactful, but individual champions won't generate as much of it on their own, okay? Early aggression will remain a core strength. Greens will still fire off their first 2 skills quickly, but their stamina economy will slow down as the fight goes on, okay? I've seen that they've slowed a couple of skills down, like Otto, and that's going to definitely change the gameplay for sure. So we'll get into that here in just a minute, but man, that's one of their favorite mechanics to really screw with, is that stamina speed, fill speed, and I just hate that when I see that, because you get so used to characters filling at a certain rate and you get a pace going, and then when they change that, that just utterly upsets that pace and makes it feel so wrong when you're playing them again in the future after a change like that. The one they did to Ned, really, man, that was rough to swallow, because he is so slow now that you really can't rely on him to be a finisher that much anymore. Just once in a while. He can only get off like once and maybe twice in a battle because of how slow his fill speed is, and that just kind of wrecked him for me. So that's going to kind of have the same effect for a lot of these green teams. Expect champion tuning that supports greens in non-faction teams while actually tapering off in power if they don't secure a quick lead. This update will refine the greens' identity as early game bruisers, making sure they remain dangerous but not unstoppable. So that's one of the reasons why I think that people are going to be able to push through this update. I don't think this nerf to the greens is going to be as bad as a lot of people think, because the ability is still there for the greens to turn 1, 2, boom, boom, hit real fast, take out 2 or 3 of your really good strikers, and then you're screwed. You can't recover from that. And even if the greens taper off in power turn 6, turn 7, turn 8, or whatever, if it lasts that long, it's still already decided in the first 3 turns of the battle what's going to go on when they take out your top 2 strikers or your key renew people or whatever. When you take them out so quickly like that, and that's what they're wanting to keep up. They're wanting to keep that green first strike ability going, and that's the green's whole thing. So I don't think that's going to be as bad as a lot of people think. And honestly, I kind of think they're being a little light-handed with that nerf, in my opinion. I don't know. I may change my mind after I try them a little bit and see a lot of these skills in action, how they feel together as a whole. But we'll have to see. Aegon Targaryen. Aegon's ability to fuel green teams past their limit has made him a bit too much of a problem child. I didn't really ever see this, but maybe it's just because I didn't have my Aegon high enough star rank, because I was only at 4. So it's possible that at 5, 6, and 7 he gets out of control, and I just don't know that because I never got there. But I mean, he was okay, and he was definitely had a slot in my Green Party for sure as a hitter. He was one of my key hitters at the beginning of the battle to surgically strike people and take them out. But I never really saw that. But that may just be, like I said, due to my lack of stars and levels that I had on him versus what other people had. Less stamina generation, passive stamina buff slightly reduced. So his green's allies actually run out of gas as intended. So I guess that probably was part of the problem. Later on, at a higher star and higher level, higher skill level, his ability to regen to passive stamina buff was just too good, I guess, and I just never got there to really see it, so that's why I'm not understanding that. Adjusted stats and damage, he has a lower attack, higher defense and hit points, making him more resilient but not overly aggressive, so he may not be so much of my first turn hitter type thing anymore. I don't know. We'll have to see how much of a reduce in power we're talking about here. Reduced attack buff. Attack buff will be weaker and shorter in duration. Will now be much higher for consistent impact. Aegon will still accelerate the battle, but his power will be now more measured and adaptable, ensuring he doesn't break the rules of his faction's playstyle. Then we jump into Aemond, the purple one, the one eye. Aemond's explosive damage will remain intact, but his reliability and speed will be adjusted to ensure he doesn't dominate beyond his intended role. This one is one that I said is just it's gonna feel so awful. Reducing his slower stamina speed. His stamina speed has been changed to slow. It will be tougher to keep up his offense afterwards. Yeah, because it's going to take longer to fill him up now. And you're not going to get to hit with him as often, so that one's gonna feel bad, really. The nerf to Aemon's stamina speed is going to feel really bad. His base damage will increase, but his bonus damage per birthright will be reduced, making his output more stable rather than purely scaling from his birthright. He is known for being a heavy hitter. Whenever you charge him up full birthright at a higher star level, he can assassinate just about anybody in one hit. And that's kind of looks like that's been toned down a little bit because his his bonus damage per birthright will be reduced. So that's going to make his output a lot lower. So yeah, we'll see. He's still going to be one of the first hitters, but it's just that he's not going to assassinate so easily now, I think. And and plus his slower stamina speed, oh my god, that's going to kill that character for a lot of people. And that's going to really frustrate a lot of people because Aemond is one of a lot of people's favorite characters. So when you go screwing around with that and slowing down the stamina speed, you're just asking for a lot of hate right there. I mean, they never should have released him in the state he was in, honestly. I think there should have been more play testing to help them understand that he was too powerful to begin with, and then it wouldn't feel so bad. But now that you've let people have some and you take it away, it's going to feel 10 times worse. So more play testing before you release this stuff, please. That would help a lot. Nerfs wouldn't be necessary if we knew that they needed fixed before they were released. And that's one of the problems with this testing style they use with giving content to a limited player base. We're not giving any feedback, so there's no way for them to actually find out what the players are thinking because it's just the feedback ability is not there. So they're just running metrics on reports, and that's all they're really doing for feedback. And maybe some people hit the support chat function on some things, but I guarantee it's not very much at all. Damage rebalance, his base damage will increase. Yep. Adjusted leader ability. I never really used his leader ability, so I don't even really know if it was worth using or not. But it says his birthright generation will be reduced to keep green leader's abilities balanced. Aegon should be the better choice when the team is in a tough situation, while Aemond will reward pure aggression. Like I said, I never really used it, so I don't know. Reworked passive. Instead of gaining birthright on his own critical strikes, he will gain it when any ally lands a crit. making him less self-sufficient on green teams, but potentially stronger in mixed compositions where fast allies can fuel him. So this right here is something that may be worth pursuing. If you can come up with a team that generates a lot of crits, putting Aemond on that team would be good now, because he's going to gain birthright when his allies land a crit. So that could be anything that lands a lot of crits, could be possibly something to put him with that's really good. Preserving Aemond's raw power is a must, while preventing him from endlessly fueling himself and preventing his leader ability from overshadowing others. He'll remain a devastating force, especially amongst his fellow greens. I don't really think that this is going to be the case. I think they're overstating that a little bit, that he's going to be a devastating force, because you can't be a devastating force when you can't use your ability. And if your ability takes too long to charge, then you're not using it, and therefore you're not a devastating force. So I kind of have disagreements with that. One of the other key updates was this one right here, Alicent Hightower, the Green Queen. Alicent has long been the engine of the Greens. Wow, yeah, so true. Alicent is a key component to a green team. If you don't have an Alicent on your green team, you don't have a green team, because she was basically keeping that birthright fueled up, and whenever she would pump that birthright up, that's when you hit. You save your stamina full bars on your Aemond and your Aegon, and then when you pop your Alicent, boom, that's when you let your Aemond and Aegon off for 2 and 3 times the damage. It was a big deal. So now if she's no longer as good of a generator, that slows the whole team down, really. It's a big deal. Increased skill damage. Her base skill damage will more than double, making her a threat in battle. So I never used her as a hitter, because she wasn't there for that. She did minimal damage and it was just negligible. Yes, I would pick and choose who I would have her attack just to get a tiny bit of extra damage to help Aemond and Aegon make sure that they one-shotted those targets. But she was never really there for that reason. She was there to generate birthright. So the fact that she now hits for more, I mean, okay, but she never really did a lot at all. So saying she hits for more is still subpar compared to anybody else that's going to be doing damage, I feel. So she's not really there for damage, even still. Even with the increased damage amount, she's not there for damage. Less birthright generation. Her skill and passive gains will be reduced, ensuring greens won't sustain into the late game. That's huge. That's going to kill a lot of green teams right there, because they're going to run out of gas, and they're going to run out of gas hard. They're no longer going to be able to just kind of slowly coast on an empty tank until the car stops rolling. They're going to run out of gas, and then boom, they're going to hit a brick wall, and they're going to stop. And that's how it's going to feel, I think, and that's going to turn a lot of people off based on the playstyle that they currently have with them. Reduced stamina sustain. Her stamina gain per turn will be lower, making sure even Alicent will run out of steam. Well, it was never really a big deal for her to run out of steam, but you needed her bar to stay filled so she could keep doing that birthright on Aemond and Aegon and Sunfire. Preserving Alicent's role as the faction's core enabler is our priority, but these changes will force greens to play within their intended tempo. Hit hard, win fast, or fade out. That was what we did now. Hit hard, win fast. And then you did fade out, but they're going to make you hit hard, win fast, or fade out harder and faster is basically what's going to happen now. Otto Hightower, this is another one that's key to a green team. Otto is such a good hero. I never really knew it. I slept on him so much. But then I finally woke up one day and was like, oh my God, Otto is so cool. He's been a powerful enabler for green teams, but we want to broaden his utility. Slower stamina gain. Here again is another slowdown on the stamina. Can we not do something different besides cut the stamina gain? I mean, that feels awful. Ugh, that's my most hated nerf right there, I think. That wins the prize for Miranda's most hated nerf. His stamina speed will be changed to very slow, ensuring that he can't sustain indefinitely. He never really sustained indefinitely before because you were too concerned with getting those blue gems filled so you could get those yellow and purple and blue, and yes, you did green when you had the chance because you wanted to keep that defense debuff going, but it was never something where he stayed filled all the time type of thing, unless that's just something that happened at max stars and I didn't know because I didn't get there. That's quite possible. But at 4 stars where I'm at, he was great, but he wasn't like always full like it's trying to kind of sound. He will grant stamina based on his birthright rather than giving birthright to each ally, making him useful outside of green teams. So now you can use auto for other characters as well. So that's possibly like, you know, we had the deal with Amond where he can then do birthright based on other people's crits. This is kind of a mechanic like that too, that could possibly cause auto to be useful in other teams, other factions, other compositions as well, other than just greens. Grant ability stamina based on his birthright rather than giving birthright to each ally. But you're going to have something there to generate his birthright though. So I don't know. That's interesting, but I don't know how usable it is. It sounds good on paper but may not be good in practice type of thing, kind of like Purple Aria. More stamina on kills. When an enemy is defeated, Otto will fuel the entire team using his own birthright, helping maintain some momentum in longer battles. Okay, that'll be cool. So whenever you kill people, you'll get more stamina. That'll only happen 4 or 5 times because there's only 4 or 5 people on a team, but if it happens within the first couple of kills and it's beneficial, it can really boost you and keep you going. So we'll see. That could be cool. With these adjustments, Otto will remain a powerful strategist capable of fueling any team that can leverage early aggression, not just his green allies. So they're pushing that you can use greens with other people thing quite a bit here I've seen, and that's kind of interesting because I'm seeing a trend develop there. You know, you can use these characters with other teams, almost like they really want us to do that. So it's worth taking notice. You know, that's what they're thinking. Sunfire, this one's really good to see. I'm glad that this says what it says because Sunfire is my boy. Sunfire does some damage and I love Sunfire, and I'm glad they're not really nerfing him per se, possibly buffing him a little bit, it looks like. Since Sunfire is exclusive to PvE, yeah, okay, he's good in raids too, bros. But anyway, we want to make sure he remains strong, especially in Legendary Assault, while aligning him with the Green's early game burst identity. Totally use him in Legendary Assault for sure, but he is also very good in raids too. Let's just say that, because I think they're underselling his ability in raids. Slightly stronger skill damage. His max damage will increase, giving him a bit more punch at full birthright stacks. So if Allison can still buff the birthright at the start of the battle like she normally does, he'll hit a little harder, and that'll be great. Shorter fire resist debuff. This will last 1 less turn, ensuring less scaling in extended battles while preserving early battle synergy with greens. Never really knew that this was a big deal anyway, because nobody really uses fire anymore because it's all about greens. So yeah, figure that one out. Reduced stamina gain. His passive will grant less stamina, making his skill uses harder to reach, in line with the rest of the green faction champions. Here we go with this reducing stamina gain again. Man, that was the greens whole thing, and now it's just completely flipped on its head here. Reduced stamina gain. His passive will grant less stamina, making his skill uses harder to reach. So you basically have just slowed down his skill gain. Again, that's another way of doing that. It's either to make it from a fast to a slow, or turn down the stamina gain from passive abilities. I just don't like that. These changes keep Sunfire's power intact while preventing him from scaling too far in longer battles. He's still a top-tier PvE pick, but you'll need to be mindful of his stamina economy as battles progress, so we'll see. But I'm glad that the nerf didn't hit him too hard, but this right here actually hits him a lot harder than people are going to understand. That reduced passive stamina gain. That's going to be a big deal. Hang on. Sorry, I needed to get a drink. I'm losing my voice already. So moving on to Kristen Cole, they didn't really do a lot with Kristen Cole. I think that just mainly is due to the fact that Kristen Cole really just got into the game for a lot of players, and a lot of people haven't really had a chance to really pump him up to a level where they've discovered if he's broken or not yet. So that's probably, the key. And it could also be that people have just not chose to use him very much because he may not be that great. I don't know. I've got him, but I've never used him because the green team composition that I usually roll with does have no place for him. So there was no need for him because I didn't need a taunter. I destroyed stuff by turn 3, so I didn't need a taunter. There's no point for a taunter when everything's dead. So that's just kind of where I was at with that one. So they're going to add some new people into the green faction. These are all going to be epics. Well, the first 2 are epics, and then there's 2 commons. I will let you guys kind of look at these on your own and see if you think there's anything there. I'm just not going to really go into too much detail with epics, and surely not with commons, because commons just have no place in a solid team in this game. It's just the way it is. Commons are just not what you want to use. They're just a waste of resources. I don't care what their abilities are. There's not a common in the game that I would say would be worth putting in my team. It's all about legendaries, and there are very few epics that have the ability to really shine. There are a few, though, like a Red Jon Snow. He's an example of an epic that's really good. Even after nerf, he's still pretty good, but before nerf, wow, he was amazing. But those characters are really few and far between, so I'm going to let you guys kind of digest this yourself. I don't really want to spend a whole lot of time on that because they're just not that great in my opinion. I could be wrong. I totally could be wrong. And if you can think of any mechanics that you come up with that you think they're going to really shine on, talk about it in the comments and the video. Let's talk about it. So now we're going to move on to the Night's Watch. This one is something really hilarious because me and my partner, the Digital Gandalf, we kind of uncovered these characters about a year ago. Benjen Stark and Yoren and Will. We found he found those characters in the files like a year ago, and we've been waiting. Are they ever going to put these characters in the game? Well, finally, here we go. The Night's Watch gets some love. I know there's an alliance in the game that might find this really attractive. I think their name is Night's Watch. Imagine that. They do not bend, they do not endure, they do not fight with reckless abandon, nor do they crumble at the first sign of danger. They stack their shields, build the wall, and stand against the storms. Man, some really good literary mastery there. Make you really see that in your head. Shields alone are not enough, though. First off, we're bolstering the power of the Night's Watch just how they would by recruiting new champions into the faction. We'll be adding some key players to shield teams that we think Night's Watch players will find very useful. Benjen Stark. He's going to be a legendary gold survivor fighter. As the new damage dealer of the Night's Watch, Benjen Stark excels at early game aggression with depose damage. So there we go with that depose skill again. That's been really useful on, I think, like what, the Ironborn or something like that use depose. I've heard that's really good, but that's something I haven't never really bought into, so I don't know, but I've heard it's good. While his shield-based mechanics allow him to scale into longer fights, his skill is a shield bearer's dream. Deals 100% or 175% at max to pose damage, but if he has a shield, he deals an additional 300 to 350% shield damage, making him deadly in sustained fights. Can anybody say Alistair Thorn? Pair this guy with Alistair. Oh my god. That's gonna be pretty brutal if that goes off like I'm thinking. With Alistair and with Sam constantly throwing up shields, him doing 300, 350% shield damage, that's going to be ugly. That's going to be ugly, boys. I mean, that's going to be sick. I'm going to be testing that out. Alistair Thorn and Sam. And maybe even throw in a Zero. I don't know. It depends on how fast he gains that stamina. I'm going to be interested to see what speed his stamina gain is. If that's because, I mean, he'll be primed for a nerf if it's too fast. But we'll see. I don't know. That has some possibilities right there. That Benjamin Stark is looking really tasty. His leader abilities for wildling suppression. Free folk champions suffer some blah 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 blah. Nobody fights free folk, so I don't really think this is going to be such a big deal, because when do we fight free folk? In the campaign? Who does campaign? You do the campaign once and then you're done. Maybe in the Crowns Challenge, this might be really useful if you go against a lot of free folk type enemy composition. That might be really useful. But as far as playing other players' teams, I think Tormund maybe is a free folk, and he might be somebody that, you know, would be nice to have this up against, but a 1-1 maybe, you know, but I honestly don't see very many 1-1 teams, and I really don't see Tormund that often anymore, really. Maybe that'll change when the Greens lose their position as, you know, top power. I don't know. We'll see. But that whole wildling suppression thing is not really a thing. So I don't know why they're really going towards that. Unless they have something planned for the future that's going to make free folk a lot more common. I don't know. You know, that could happen. Benjen is a powerhouse when properly shielded, rewarding careful team synergy while keeping his allies fortified throughout extended fights. His leader ability is situational, but when facing wildling parties, it ensures to watch them firm. So that's not going to be a thing. So his leadership ability is probably not going to be what you're using, but his ability to strike with a shield, that's going to be the bread and butter of Benjen Stark. So that's really cool. I like the look of him. I'm severely interested in that one. Yoren is a defensive anchor for the Night's Watch, the blue traveled protector. So he's a blue. So blues are getting a little stacked on Night's Watch because you got your Sam, and you're going to want Sam in there for sure. Now you're going to have another blue, so if you use Yoren. So I don't know. It may cause him to bench a little bit. We'll see his choice of color, but I mean, they've only got so many they can use, so I get it. His skill is Enduring Strike. He deals 100 or 150% at max sustained attack damage for 3 turns and grants himself a shield, allowing him to build defenses while dealing steady damage. So he's buffing, and Yoren taunts for 6 turns. If the fallen ally was a Night's Watch member, Yoren gains a shield. So he's a taunter. His leadership ability shuts down sharpshooters. I mean, that's great if we faced a lot of marksmen, but I really don't see a lot of marksmen, so it's not really going to be as beneficial as a lot of other stuff. But it could be, you know, we'll see. And then we go into Will, the new Epic Violet Cunning Strategist. So he's going to be a purple. He's the first Night Watchman we meet in Game of Thrones. Finally arrives in our game. He's a high-risk, high-reward damage dealer, thriving when shielded and keeps his allies prepared for battle. So think about rogue type thing. Silent Strike deals 50% or 100% attack damage, but if Will is shielded, he adds 200 to 300% bonus damage and scouts the target for 2 turns, making them for future, marking them for future attacks. So that's kind of cool, because that could cause some big damage to happen if he is able to put it where he wants, type of thing. That would be, preferable. If it's random how it applies, then not so much. But when he attacks, sounds like it knows where it's going to go because he has chosen who to hit. So I think that's going to be how it is. His passive is a warning too late. When Will is defeated, all allies gain a 10% HP shield. Any enemies that were scouted remain scouted. So that's not really going to be that big of a deal, but it's something, and it'll be neat. If you have him in your party to do, like a glass cannon, to do a lot of damage, and then you're planning on him dying, kind of like a woodland archer type thing. Benjen, Stark, Yorn, and Will are coming to the game soon. Keep an eye out for their summon pack in the next few weeks. So it doesn't give us a definite date, but it does say the next few weeks. Then let's talk about Alistair Thorne. I've always liked Alistair Thorne, but I've never really used him a lot. But in combination with Benjen, oh yeah. The Night's Watch Master of Arms has always been powerful support, but his impact is held back by unreliable shielding and a limited Night's Watch roster. This update will improve his consistency, make his defensive buffs apply more broadly while balancing his speed and friendly fire mechanics. I mean, I can't understand why they don't have a partner gem between him and Benjen, because this is just going to get sick. Because the way it's almost like they built Benjen to go with Allison, you know what I mean? Or with Sam. With the Alistair and Sam combo with Benjen, it's almost like that was built to be together. You were made for each other. Skill speed I promise I won't sing no more. Sorry. Skill speed adjustment will change to fast, slowing his early game impact. So he was very fast, and now he's going to go too fast. But at least he'll still charge up within a reasonable amount of time. At least they didn't do something crazy like take him to slow. I am going to predict, though, I'm going to prophesy here, folks, that once they see the interaction between Alistair and Benjen, I bet you they're going to take this down another notch. I see it coming. I just see it coming. More reliable shielding. He dies, you die. Skill shield will increase in power, making him a stronger protector. Good. So that means his shields are going to get a little stronger. That was one of the things that I never really liked about him, because his shields were a little weak, but you could put them on pretty fast. But now if they're a little stronger, that kind of mitigates the fact that you can do them less often. So that'll be good in combination with the slowing down of the stamina speed fill. Friendly fire adjustment will shift to current HP to true damage, making it strong, but it'll never defeat his own allies. Okay, good. So he won't hit his own people anymore. That's really good. Passive rework will apply his debuff to defense buff to any ally who loses a shield, not just Night's Watch members, but reduced potency no longer will grant tenacity. Okay, so now his defense buff is going to apply to anybody in the party, not just Night's Watch. It seems like it'll apply at a lesser potency, but that's still kind of cool. We'll see how that interacts. Leader shield will shift his granted shields to source attack and have more accuracy. Okay, probably not going to use his leadership ability ever, but if you do, that might be something to keep in mind. These changes will make Alistair a more reliable and versatile support, especially when paired with champions like Benjen, who can maintain shields over time. However, his slower speed and increased friendly damage will keep his power in check. Okay, so I don't know how that's all worded right there. It's kind of, I don't understand, but I do understand that he's built to be with Benjen. That's what I'm saying. Samuel Tarly. This is one that I have been waiting to use since the beginning of the game. There's only certain situations where I ever pull my Sam out, and that's when I need sustain. And the Crowns Challenge has been a really good place for Sam to shine because he has helped boost my team's survivability and add sustain and allow me to get a lot higher up in a lot of the levels than I would have without his constant shields going, keeping them alive. But in combination with Alistair and Benjen, I think this is going to be an unholy trio right here. This is going to be sick. Oh, so excited. I feel this coming right here. Sam has been and I've been wanting Sam to be good because I've got a 7-star Sam and I just hardly ever use him, but now I'm going to pump some silver into him because I think that's just going to be too good. Fine-tuning his ability to ensure he remains a reliable support without completely shutting down debuff-heavy teams. Okay, so debuff-heavy teams, look out. Sam's going to shield them and sustain through your debuff. More ice removal. His skill, No Reason to Be Afraid, will now clear ice from all Night's Watch allies. I mean, honestly, I would think that Night's Watch shouldn't even be able to have ice applied to them, but whatever. He's going to clear it out, so that's cool. Improved debuff cleansing. His passive, Steward and Training, will have double the debuff removal power for Night's Watch members, keeping his brother standing strong. So remember this, because this is going to be super important when they finally get around to doing whatever they're talking about doing with the Boltons and the bleed. This is going to make Sam super good, because he's going to be able to cleanse a lot of that bleed too. That increases his potency, his awesomeness. His awesomeness factor when the bleed really gets reworked and comes into the game and becomes an irritating thing, his awesomeness factor just went up right there. So remember that. Smoother performance. Sam will still work well outside Night's Watch teams, especially when supporting shielded allies. Yeah, he's really great for sustain. That's just all there is to it. Finally, his leadership ability. Somebody had to be the first. Will gain some power. White Walker champions will properly suffer the defense penalty. I mean, that's really not a thing. You never really fight White Walker enemies unless they do something with the White Walker faction. I mean, it's not really even a faction. They took that out of the game, but yeah, who uses the White Walkers really? So this is not something you're going to use. So I don't know. Much to do about nothing, I think. These changes will keep Sam a pillar of support while making sure he fits naturally into the evolving strengths of the Night's Watch. Sam is going to be really good going forward, and I'm so happy about that. Thank you, developers, because I have a really strong Sam, and I've always wanted to use him, and there's only been very few situations where I really felt like I was getting my money out of him, and then I had to put him on the bench because he just wasn't for an everyday party. So, yeah, I like this. I like this a lot. Craster, who uses Craster? So I'm not really going to waste any time talking about Craster. I don't know anybody that uses Craster, so I don't really know why he's even in the game, honestly. He was not that big a deal in the lore, as everybody tries to act like he was. He's just not a thing. We've also assessed the Night's Watch faction bonus and will be decreasing the bonus shield power at 4 and 5 members. The higher bonuses could punish players for substituting in champions that didn't feel right. We'll continue to monitor. Okay, all right. Free folk tuning. The North is unforgiving, and so are they. So maybe this will cause some of those other synergies we talked about earlier to become more important when facing free folk, because maybe people will start using them now. Honestly, the only free folk that I've seen people use is Tormund and 1-1. And I never seen Oral in teams. I mean, if I did, it was because they were noobs and they didn't have anybody else that was any good. 1-1 was a serious composition for certain type of teams, and Tormund, it was just really good. Because Tormund is fun, because Tormund is an AoE. And a lot of people really like that kind of gameplay style, and Tormund did a lot of damage. So he was good. He's good to use. I've kind of grown out of Tormund, but I may be growing back into Tormund, especially if the green changes have been brutal. Then I may actually go back into my AoE party, and then Tormund always has a place in that. So he's had some changes. You'll have to read about that to see if that's going to be anything that's important to you. The Wildling Wolf Slayer. And I'm not really spending a whole lot of time on free folk stuff because I'm just not a free folk person. So, I mean, I think they're cool. And 1-1's definitely cool. I've got a 6-star 1-1, but I never use him. He's still like level 1, I think. But he could be fun, and I could use him, but I just never really got around to it. There's only so much one player can do. And a lot of times it depends on how much money you've spent on the game, whether you can try some of this stuff or not. And things like Triarchy and stuff like that, I never have played because I just don't have the money to try everything. So there's some things that have to be left alone because you can't afford to build them. And with the silver issue that we've went through for months, and that's just now finally starting to rectify itself with the addition of the silver from the Crown's Challenge, we never really could build a lot of stuff anyway. So you kind of had to pick and choose your factions and your metas to try to focus on those, and the rest just kind of got left aside. And that's what free folk, that's what Triarchy, that's what all those things. Boltons for me are the same way. I never had the money or the time to really put into the Boltons, so that's why I don't really know a lot about those, because I just haven't had the ability to build them. The Crown's Challenge was a smart mechanic because it is what a lot of games use to cause you to deepen your roster, and therefore when you deepen your roster you spend more money. So that's a brilliant mechanic for game developers to use, because that causes people to, oh, I got to get that silver, I got to get those tokens, I got to get those rewards. Well, guess what? Now I got to build all these teams that I never would have built before, but now I got to build them because I need to get those rewards. Well, you're turning around and putting those rewards right back into your people that you're building, and now you got to buy more stuff. So eventually you'll catch up and you'll get ahead of the curve, but it's brilliant. It's genius development strategy. I've seen a lot of games utilize that. It's deepening your roster in these kind of games is what you're forcing the player to do, and that's really good. And that's what will happen with the Boltons. It's a mechanic that I think has been intentionally kind of left to the wayside so that when it has its moment, it can have a lot of impact. And they're saying right here, we'll be making changes to bleed, ensuring it rewards those who use it well, removing the frustration of waiting on the perfect moment. Bleed will hit harder, and applying it when it resets its duration will let you play it more tactically and feel like, you're really doing something with it. So they're right here telling us that bleed's coming. And that's why I told you that Sam was going to be super good, because he's going to be removing a lot of this stuff. So that's how you develop games. You build counters. You give people options that when this thing is too strong, I switch to this team and now I deal with it. That's how you design a game. You don't let people spend thousands of dollars building up that insanely broken team and then take it all away from them. That's not cool. Not cool. So anyway, this has been a really awesome thing, and I just want to say again to Battle Kitty, Game of Thrones Legends design director, thank you. We really appreciate your efforts in doing this for the community. I know that I've been saying a lot of positive things, but also having a lot of negative comments in this thing I've done here tonight, but you got to take the good with the bad. I'm trying to give some constructive criticism to help the development get better from a player's perspective. I feel like I have the player's perspective at heart, because I'm obviously not a developer, so what do I got? I'm a player. So I'm hoping that I can kind of represent the player base and say thank you to you, Battle Kitty, And also, please don't get so mad about the negative things I've said in this, because I want you guys to understand where the players come from. I'm the average Joe. I'm the guy on the street that's playing the game just like everybody else, and we want our voices to be heard, dang it. So thank you. It does feel like you guys in the development team and staff have taken our wishes to heart, though, and this is the efforts. The Dev Diary is one of the efforts to provide more feedback to the community, and we really appreciate that. So, with all that said, this video's went on long enough, almost an hour now. I want to hear what you think in the comments. Let's talk about this. Let's interact and let's discuss, how is these changes going to affect your green team? How is this going to affect the way you play events, the way you play Legendary Assault, the way you play raids? How is this going to affect it? Is it going to make you change your play style and find a different team? Because I'm not lying, what this update is going to do to me is to cause me to have to get out of my box, because I've got a little lazy here lately and I've used my green team for everything, and I think that's what they're trying to kind of squash a little bit now. So no longer are everybody going to be able to roll the dragons with their green team, roll events with their green team, roll raids with their green team, do a lot of the crowns challenge with their green team. Now you're going to have to branch out a little bit. And I think that's what a lot of people are going to hate. So let me know in the comments what you think. How's this going to change the way you play? I'm really interested to hear that. So thank you for watching my content. I really appreciate you being here. It's late. You're probably tired because it's the middle of your week, but you chose to be with me anyway, and I really appreciate that. Check the description of my video for a link to my Discord. I got a thriving, active Discord where we talk about this game and no holds barred. We'd love to hear what you have to think about it as well. You can feel free to share things in a community that's not managed by the developers, so you can kind of hang loose and, say what you think. But I really appreciate you guys watching my content, and I will see you soon in another video about Game of Thrones Legends. Peace!